wash my soul in the ocean, in the tears of God, I let it go.
Hello, my astrology friends. This is Lada from astrolada.com, and these are your astrology videos for April 2022. The April 2022 is full of new beginnings again. All planets are moving direct, so we're continuing into new territory, a lot of new unexpected events for the whole world, but for us personally as well, where we're required to adapt and to act very fast, and we'll be surprised constantly. And the eclipses are starting. The eclipses! The whole financial situation and economy might be shaken. We already can feel it a month before that with an eclipse in Taurus, and we all have to adapt very quickly. Let's find out how it will affect you personally. It's going to be a very exciting month. And Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, wow, this is divine blessings that are given to us. They almost like can fall on our lap, and divine intuition. So let's see how to adapt. But first I wanted to excitedly to tell you that I'm doing a course of 6 months. Me personally, I rarely do courses, that how to interpret the natal chart, the Astrolada method. We're going to be using all techniques that I've gathered from Western Babylonian, Greek, Vedic astrology that work the best, and I'll teach you these techniques, how to read a natal chart, to put it together, to make sense of it. And you need to know minimal astrology, what the signs are, what the planets are, what the houses mean. And I will teach you my methods, and we'll look at different life themes, how to look at love, how to look at career, and how to, if you're analyzing a chart, what's the most important things, where to start, and how to answer questions of astrology very easy. I love easy techniques. I don't like difficult astrology. Astrology should have easy answers. I'm an Aries. I need quite quick, fast, easy answers. Not looking at semi-squares and midpoints. No, it has to be very simple, sticks out. So much fire, political career, fantastic, or whatever. So I teach you how I do that with very easy astrology techniques. Join me. It's 30% discounted for the first 150 people. So thank you so much. Let's start the 12 signs. Sagittarius, Sun, Moon, or Rising, April 2022. Let's start with the good news. Jupiter, the planet that rules you, is finally becoming visible. We call it in astrology, it's rising. It's heliacal rising, because for the last 3 months, almost 2-3 months, Jupiter was invisible, which means that everyone who has strong Sagittarian influence might have felt a little bit under the weather, maybe not able to manifest externally because their planet was invisible. Maybe the more developments were internal in their private life rather than external, and maybe you are not able to, to whatever you try to do you are not able to make it happen. And maybe it was more time to retreat, and maybe your even vitality and energy and motivation was decreased and less. But now, the first week or 2 weeks of April, is when Jupiter is becoming visible all over around the world. And it means that you will rise as well. You'll fill up with energy, with motivation. Your health might improve. You might start new projects with more inspiration, with more motivation. You can feel as if you're back to take over the world. And Jupiter will become visible in your 4th house here. And the first 2 weeks are very powerful Jupiterian time, because a week before Jupiter becomes visible and a week after. So the first 2 weeks of April, this is happening. Hopefully for the world as well, because Jupiter is becoming visible in Pisces, which is a very peace-loving sign. So we're praying for some good resolution and goodwill. But for you in personal, it will become visible in the 4th house. So you can initiate some new beginning in this in this 4th house, which is connected about which it's connected about home, property, place of living, emotional happiness can improve, and family, all of those topics. But generally, knowing that your planet is becoming visible is very good news. Then the month, actually, let's start from the beginning. The month starts with a new moon in Aries, your 5th house, which is very supportive energy for Sagittarius. Your fire sign, the new moon in fire will spark up your passion. 5th house is house of passion, will spark up your romantic nature, your fun nature. Simultaneously, while Jupiter starts to become visible, you have 2 weeks, the beginning of April, that they under the influence of full moon in the fifth house. So it will give even more wind behind your wings, to be joyful, to experience more connection again with source, because the fifth house is one of the houses where we can connect with source, and one of the clearest signs you're connected to source is feeling joy. Just like children, is the house of children as well. And it can indicate new moons are about new beginnings, that you can discover something new, or let's say revive something. And the fifth house is your ability to enjoy life, so you can decide to do things or discover a new hobby or something that makes you more joyful, a new art or a new artistic endeavor of some sort that make you feel alive and joyful. Fifth house is also romance. It can be renewal of your romantic life. Maybe you go and do something fun with your partner that you haven't done for a while, a bit more spontaneous, childlike, you laugh a bit more, even kind of sexually there can be a bit more chemistry with this more adventurous energy there. If you're single, for some of you it can indicate the coming of an opportunity, or coming of a new romantic interest in your life. I mean, there is a new moon in your fifth house every year around April, but then every time for different people, it doesn't mean every year you new romance, but occasionally a new moon can trigger for some of you, if it's the right time determined by other more serious astrological methods, let's say more lengthy. This new moon can trigger for some of you the beginning of a new romantic relationship, and it might be with someone more youthful, because Mercury is involved there, with someone who is more fun, witty, youthful, or younger even, or someone that you have good communication and rapport with. The fifth house is also the house of creative endeavors. You can come up with a new creative ideas, original idea, might be to create a business, might be because Mercury is also a bit business and work oriented. You might be able to express a creative idea and talk about it, or put a plan about the creative idea. If it's a creative idea, I don't mean like making pottery only, or drawing, or singing, or performing on stage. Creative ideas, anything that is your own original thought. It might be creative idea about the cleaning business, creative idea about sports business, but it's your own original invention. So you can put a plan about something like a business plan about the original creative idea, and so on. All right. Then there is a focus on children, of course, the fifth house. Those of you who have children, they can be your child starting to study something new, or some conversations and mutual activities, which is what Mercury is doing with your child, the child starting some new phase in their life. Now, there is another big beginning happening collectively for all of us, and that Saturn-Mars new cycle is starting on the 5th of March. They will be conjunct in your third house, and that's one of the so-called houses where Saturn and Mars like to transit, because this is a house of learning to do difficult things. Anything that you have to learn, any skill you have to learn, is third house. Whether it's learning to speak a different language, to drive a car, to operate machinery, to knit, to play football, to play tennis, to anything where you have to learn rules and repeat, you learn and follow some kind of training. This is the third house. These are difficult things. Okay, do you remember learning to drive a car and how difficult it was at the beginning? And then it becomes automatic. But the process of starting to learn something is the third house, especially skills that are practical and rather than theoretical. So Saturn and Mars starting their new cycle, two difficult planets, will help you not be afraid to undertake some difficult skill learning, because usually we're kind of lazy, especially later in life. To start to learn a new language, or to start to drive now at 30, or to learn to create a website now. I'm a bit too old for that. I mean, younger children are easy at learning, but with age, we need some harsher influences, or this kind of a determined Saturnian energy influence, almost like by pressure. Maybe external circumstances might pressure you to start learning something new, because maybe there's something changing in the company you learn, so you have to learn to use a new software or whatever. Or maybe You have to create a new YouTube or Google account or some kind of a Google ads, or learn something new how to do, because you want to expand your business or whatever, and there's no one else to do it, so you have to learn to do this. Whatever it is, a course, a skill, Saturn can force you into it, but Mars also will give you the discipline of a soldier and the energy to persevere. And it might be due to frustration that you have to learn something new, but it might take even 2 years to fully acquire this new skill, because this cycle is 2 years old. But at the end of the process, you'll be if you put the right efforts of Saturn, consistent, repeated daily effort in small doses with Mars, when you're putting your own will and energy regularly without hurrying up too much, because this will be a slow job. Saturn is the dominant planet. You're going to end up with acquiring some skill that serves you for many years ahead. On the more negative side, those two stressful planets in the third house of communication is a warning to be a bit careful with your devices, with TVs, with phones, with pads, with computers, or even with your cars. There might be some, because they're joining together, especially the first 10 days of April, there might be some problems with such devices, damage, so just warning, not for everyone, but it's a possibility. And then communications with others. You can feel frustrated when you communicate, maybe especially around the 5th of April, a few days before, a few days after. But because they're in your third house the whole month, you have to be a bit more careful how you communicate with others, because you can notice that there is more possibility to fight, possibility not to see eye to eye, you see, and to with siblings, with relatives, with neighbors, with workmates, with teammates, with schoolmates, with mates of some sort. And some of you might even have to take kind of a more ultimate, a ruthless decision, because Saturn and Mars have this ruthless energy of it, to cut off certain for example, third house would be social media time. You might, Mars and Saturn ask you to come out of your comfort zone, and with willpower and personal effort, fix something or remove something. And it might be that you decide that you limit your digital time or exposure to TV or news. Third house rules those things. You might get frustrated at those things, and you put order, Saturn, to put order, to control the processes of the mind, the information that flows in, and where you put your attention. And Mars is act on it. Now it's time to act on it. So some of you can really do really great at cutting off some things that, some social medias or contacts, or even certain relationships with people that might be can have like a mental abuse over you, or friends, all of those people in your everyday environment. So some of those things can escalate, just letting you know. But again, as I said, overall influence of two malefics in the third house tends to be positive, especially for learning things, to put in control of your thoughts. Some of you might be starting a very difficult third house project, very demanding, that will put you out of your comfort zone. What is a third house project? Not only learning something, but something about writing, about speaking, about social media, about marketing, advertising, business plan, managing, organizing something, communication, or travels as well, or some repairs about the car. And I would advise you to be a bit cautious with travel, short travels, especially around the 5th of April, a few days before, a few days after. If possible, try not to, with cars and such things. I'm not saying anything bad necessarily will happen. It's just a possibility a bit higher. So just be a bit careful this month with such things. If you have some short trip somewhere, maybe move it a bit later, all right. Or some get together with friends and like-minded. It might feel a bit tense, but you can do some important work that requires dedication with team, or with like-minded people, or with a small group of people, and that requires a lot of efforts. It might be a bit stressful and intense, but the final results again can be positive down the line. Then there is another new cycle starting for you, Sagittarius. This is the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction and that's going to be a 12-year cycle. It will never repeat again in your life in the same place of the horoscope. and Jupiter and Neptune will only meet again in 12 years. But first, they'll meet in your fourth house around the 12th of April, which means there'll be the beginning seeds of something starting there in this fourth house. Plus, Jupiter is becoming visible around this time. So it's double whammy, new beginning. Again, something connected to home, to family, to property, to finding a place to belong, to finding a place that you have a soul connection to, because Neptune is there, maybe a place that really feels magical to you, or even improving your home somehow to make it, maybe even one, because Jupiter and Neptune are both spiritual and kind of religious influences, maybe make some altar or a place of retreat in your home, maybe a little garden with fairies, or a little altar with the images of some teachers, or with stones, sacred stones, or something like that. That can be one great remedy for that Jupiter Neptune becoming visible in your fourth house and basically joining together. And another thing, so because sometimes Jupiter Neptune can give like water problem in Pisces, like with the home and so on. So I hope it's not that, you know. But also it can indicate some of you the possibility to relocate, to move, or you know, and or even to add something to their home, to expand it, which is Jupiter, to expand family, to visit roots, to connect to the spiritual roots of their family, and so on. In rare occasions, Jupiter Neptune conjunction in Pisces have this meaning, because Pisces is a sign of loss, but it's a loss that is divinely approved, because connected to home, family, and all of those things, and belonging, but it's a loss that's hidden divine blessings in disguise, because they're making space for like clearing the ground for the ground for you, because it's at the bottom of the horoscope, to create a more spiritual foundation in your life, and where you feel, and to maybe to connect you to the right place, to the right roots, to the and to clear up some trauma from your family. You see, this Jupiter Neptune is very healing influence in Pisces in the fourth house, is where we store the memories, our ancestral memories of repeating patterns, so what happened early in our childhood with the family. And because it's Pisces, it's very often unconscious, we've forgotten. But it's the defining, it's the bottom of the horoscope. How stable are you on your 2 feet? And if that foundation is not forgiven and cleaned and healed, you cannot stand, you don't have strong foundations. But Neptune and Jupiter are dissolving some of those foundations. Some of your understanding of family and root and how you want to live your life, in a sense, place and belonging. But they can also indicate that there is a healing of family trauma, and releasing and forgiving a family member or ancestors, and washing away and releasing some ancestral repeating pattern in your family. Almost like a blessing that you're released from such connection and to such bonds and ties. All right, some secrets might come up about the family as well. Some powerful information that is very liberating can come up, because Jupiter is knowledge, Neptune is secrets in the fourth house of family, of your subconscious, of your roots. That can feel a little bit like, wow, overwhelming, but it's again, it will have the ultimate goal to liberate you. And then we have another new beginning. At the end of the month, on the 30th of April, is eclipse season. And this is a solar eclipse, which is about new beginnings. The sun and moon are moving in Taurus, and around the 11th degree, they're going to meet with Uranus there and the North Node. This is the North Node eclipse, and the sixth house for you. It doesn't directly aspect Sagittarius, but the sixth house can indicate, especially for Sagittarius rising people, maybe the moon, the sun to some extent as well, that there is a powerful new beginning. And this solar eclipse is active for 1 year. Maybe the change will not happen immediately at the end of April, start of May, but within 1 year, the eclipses will be happening in your sixth house. I believe big changes can happen already from the time of the eclipse, but sometimes they get triggered later down within the next 12 months by other transits. A big change, fated almost in your work. Some of you might change work direction. There might be some innovations happening in their work, some shocking, surprising developments, Uranus, or some kind of modernization of the work or the job. and it comes as a surprise. Maybe that's why some of you might have to learn some new skills. Others might indicate that there some crisis happen at the workplace and they need to change work. But because Rahu is part of this, you can gain a new job that is kind of more progressive, and Uranian, which is more connected to innovative things and new technologies, or new or more kind of alternative kind of career, and even the start of some job that gives you more freedom, because Uranus participates in this eclipse new moon. And Uranus is like not 9 to 5, but something where you can work from home on and off, or a different kind of where you have a bit more freedom, or as a freelancer, for example. But it might be a bit disruptive on the everyday, because the sixth house also rules your routines, the plans that you have. Oh, today I'm going to do this. At 8 o'clock I do my exercise, at 10 o'clock I write, or whatever. Well, it will all be thrown up in the air for a week or two around the eclipse. Expect the unexpected there towards the end of April, the start of May, and you have to quickly adapt. Can also indicate of you starting a new workout routine or lifestyle change with your nutrition or workout, and taking care of your health, because it's a new moon eclipse, which to introduce something new with Rahu and Uranus, maybe more alternative, something you've never done before, new alternative medicine, new alternative medication or therapy of some sort, a new kind of exercise that you start, and nutrition plan. It might come very suddenly, quickly. It might feel a bit disruptive, but usually because Rahu participates, there can be more enthusiasm for that. In extreme cases, an eclipse in the sixth house can indicate some health crisis. Just to let you know, eclipses are not always the easiest, but usually this health crisis can indicate the need to change something big in your lifestyle, again by introducing alternative or new medicine or new therapies or new alternative workouts, and something you haven't done before. Okay, so there we go. Sagittarius, lots of things happening, very happening month, fascinating. And those of you who wanna do something difficult but enjoyable, and use your Saturn and Mars in the third house to learn something new, you can join me to learn the techniques of interpreting the natal chart that I personally use and gathered from different astrological backgrounds, which will be around 6 weeks course starting in May. Thank you.